Take a step on the road to fun. Take a step on the road into nature. Take a step on the road into the past. Take a step on the road to sharing powerful stories. Take a step on the road to experiencing big ideas. Take a step with Humanities on the Road as speakers from the Pennsylvania Humanities Council take you on a journey through history, literature, the arts, and the world around you. Learn more about Humanities on the Road and discover why the humanities are important to you at humanitiesontheroad.org. Welcome to Humanities on the Road, where we join you from Temple Shalom in Broomall for Blacks and Jews on stage and screen with our special guest, Warren Hoffman. And I'm Tracy Matisak. Humanities on the Road is a unique opportunity for audiences all across Pennsylvania to explore history and the arts and the important ideas that shape our world. And in this particular program, we are looking at the complex relationship and history of Blacks and Jews in America, and we are doing it by looking at film. We'll be watching movie clips from The Jazz Singer and Liberty Heights and Fires in the Mirror to see what film can tell us about the history of these groups in America. Warren Hoffman has devoted his life to theater and education. He is a playwright, he's a scholar, a critic, and he's also the director of arts and cultural programming at the Gershman Y in Philadelphia. We'll have an opportunity to talk with Warren a little bit later in the program, but for now, we'll turn it over to Warren Hoffman for Blacks and Jews on stage and screen. Please welcome Warren Hoffman.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Before I begin, I just want to say it's exciting to be back here at Temple Shalom. As some of you may know, I grew up here at Temple Shalom and was actually bar mitzvahed right here. So it's great to be back among friends and family. So tonight, if I were to ask someone who the king of ragtime was, you'd be correct if you said African-American composer and performer Scott Joplin, known for his upbeat and syncopated melodies. But if I asked you who the ragtime king was, well, it wasn't Joplin, but it was Jewish immigrant Israel Bellin, better known as Irving Berlin, who, despite never having actually written ragtime, became the ragtime king. And Berlin far outstripped Joplin's fame in his lifetime, but it's one of the many sorts of examples in which we can see an intersection between the lives of Jewish and Black performers at the early part of the 20th century. And tonight we're going to go on a journey to explore this shared history between these two groups of people throughout the 20th century. The connection between Blacks and Jews could be termed perhaps an uneasy alliance. On one hand, the two groups share much in common: a rich cultural history, a shared history of diaspora, and sadly, a history of racism, anti-Semitism, and being minority groups in the US. The experiences of both groups also famously intersected at mid-century over the course of the civil rights movement, when Blacks and Jews often fought together for civil rights, even if the result in the Black community was that they decided to fight that battle on their own. But despite these connections, as the 20th century progressed, the ability for many Jews to pass into mainstream society due to the color of their skin often provided them with advantages that the African American community was not always so lucky to have. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We have to go back to the beginning. And the beginning for us tonight is with the film The Jazz Singer. The Jazz Singer is from 1927, and it has the distinction of being the first full-length feature talking film. And the film starred Al Jolson and was based on a play by Samson Raphaelson with a screenplay by Alfred Cohn. And The Jazz Singer concerns Jackie Rabinowitz, the son of a cantor, the person who sings all the melodies in synagogue, But despite this religious upbringing for Jackie, he wants nothing else except to be a star on the American stage. And so he changes his name to Jack Robin, and he quickly finds success. But the film is about this tension between how to reconcile his Jewish heritage and his newfound American identity. And what does all this have to do with blacks and Jews? Well, Jack's success on stage comes from the fact that he is a jazz singer. But we have to put jazz in quotes because he never actually sings what we would term jazz. Jazz is basically a code word for upbeat, lively, rhythmic music, which at that time was actually more of a euphemism in its own code word for African American culture. And so there's one tie right there. And jazz stands in for what it means to be part of modern American culture in this time period. And how does Jack communicate jazz in the film? Well, he also does it, again, sadly, through the use of blackface performance. And that's something where we're actually going to begin our look tonight, the moment in which Jack first in the film puts on blackface and is getting ready for the show. So that's where we're going to begin. So there's a lot that's going on in this sequence. And one of the places I think where we have to begin is asking this question, what is Jack's identity, or maybe more importantly, what is his race in this moment? He says he feels the cry of his race. And of course, on one hand, he's obviously talking about his Jewish background, but he's doing it while wearing blackface. And so is he Jewish? Is he white? Is he black? How do we read this scene? And I think part of this is related, of course, to this problematic use of blackface. And I want to turn to a very famous scholar, Michael Rogan, who says this about this moment in the film. He says, Jack's blackface is racial cross-dressing. Cross-dressing allows the white man to acquire the envied qualities of the other sex, here race, and yet reassure himself of his identity. He's saying, I am not really black. Underneath the burnt cork is a white skin. So why is this important? Well, in this time period, Jews are not being seen as fully white, as part of Anglo-Saxon society. And so what Rogan is arguing is that the blackface is a way for Jews to distance themselves from the black population by trying to say, underneath, we're really part of this white population. So that's something that's happening here in this scene. The other thing, if you were listening to the clip at the end when he's looking in the mirror, you probably heard the strains of Kol Nidre, right? The prayer that's sung at Yom Kippur. And Kol Nidre is a prayer about the dissolution of vows and promises that one has made over the course of the year. And I think it's very relevant for what's happening in Jack's own life, because in this moment, he's not only breaking with tradition, he's sort of breaking with his identity and saying, I can find a new identity, one that is, again, American, that is, I can choose what identity I want to be. So it's interesting to see how all those pieces are coming together there. In the second scene, and actually this is the final scene in The Jazz Singer, Jack Robin is going to perform the song Mammy, another song in blackface, and he's going to perform this song for his own Yiddish mama. So we're going to watch the sequence, and we're going to talk about the significance of the song in relation to all these themes.
Mammy, Mammy, I'd walk 1,000,000 miles for one of your smiles on my Mammy. Oh, Mammy, my little Mammy. The sun shines east, the sun shines west, but I know where the sun shines best. It's on my Mammy I'm talking about. nobody else's. My little Mammy, my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mammy, I'm coming.
So what's going on in this sequence and what is this song about? Well, Jack Robin is taking on the persona of a black individual here, singing this nostalgic song of wanting to return home to the South, right? Alabama, it rhymes with Mammy in the song. And he's singing this song about Mammy, this stereotypical black figure, again, the Mammy being the woman who's either working on a plantation or helping out often with the white family down south. But he's singing the song Mammy to his own Yiddish mama. So how do these things connect? Well, some people have argued that for Jewish Americans, one thing that they were lacking when they came to this country was their own real sense of American history. They didn't have any sense of American history, actually. It's because they were newly arrived. So what did they do? They took on, in this case, a racialized, nostalgic history, that of the American South. And so it's a way for them to become part of American society by using, again, a nostalgized, stereotypical African-American experience. So the sad irony of all of this is that in The Jazz Singer, there are no actual African-Americans, and Jews use African-American experiences as a way for their own way to assimilate into society. So it's perhaps one of the sadder ways in which African and Jewish American experiences intersect, but it was important to see how these two groups viewed and used each other at this early point in the 20th century.
Thank you, Warren, for a really eye-opening look at a classic film. I am here with Rabbi Peter Rigler from Temple Shalom. And Rabbi, I want you to tell us a little bit about the congregation here, and then you get to fire away with the first question for Warren. So tell us about Temple Shalom.
Temple Shalom in Broomall is a very special community. When this community formed, as I told you earlier, it really was the individuals in this community who built the first building with their hands. And that spirit, that sense of dependence on self, of really working together, is, I think, what we see every day here.
Well, what question do you have for Warren tonight?
I wanted to ask a little bit about that picture in the first scene that you showed us, and certainly sort of looking, Jackie, at that picture and looking at his past. I'd love to hear a little bit about that role of the picture and sort of how he thinks of his past.
So Jack is very conflicted throughout this film and trying to, again, reconcile his Jewish heritage and past with this new persona that he's taking on. And so it's interesting, again, if the music is very specific there. The Jazz Singer is perfectly scored. And as he's putting on his blackface, the background is, again, it's Mammy, and then we cut to the picture of, again, his own mother. So the film is trying to get at this tension of this new American persona, which again is tied to African-American experience, and his own Jewish heritage, again personified in his mother's face. So that's the tension that's trying to be created in that moment.
Thank you much.
Hi, Warren. I'm Beverly Cylinder, and 27 years ago, you were in my first Sunday school class here at Temple Shalom, and you don't look that much different, but my question is, you said that there were, of course, no African Americans in this movie, and how do you know how African Americans perceive this movie, since, you know, he's dressing up as a black person, and how do they really feel about not being portrayed as themselves, you know, in this movie?
It's a good question and a difficult question to answer. I don't have any specific answers about the community at that time, but there's been a lot of discussion about, you know, how do we make sense or interpret blackface? Some people, in a way that I don't agree with, want to interpret blackface as a type of imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but it's clearly too stereotypical and exaggerated a performance that it's anything that I think we can believe is, that I believe is something sort of imitation or flattery. So today, blackface just still sort of haunts us, and I think